Right. Welcome to another Midweek with Max. This is Rick, joined by JCV, Joshua, Jeremy Nation, and of course our co-founder Max Sanchez. We'll get into your questions shortly, but first let's do the weekly update with Max, then over to Jeremy, just a reminder, for marketing updates, and then we can get into questions. All right, take it away.
All right, awesome. Welcome everyone to another Midweek with Max. A couple engineering updates. I've been working a lot on all of the ZK proving wiring up into the Kona framework. So that's moving along, and we're going to be spinning up an internal ZK DevNet shortly. And then once we run some testing and validation there, we'll be either updating testnet to ZK or more likely spinning up like a separate isolated ZK testing DevNet, probably based on the Hootie network for people to play around with. So that's coming along and looking good. Aside from that, we're also doing some more work on the Minerify pieces, just doing some auditing and review on that side internally and getting that ready to go out for a formal third-party audit. Let's see, what else? Marco's making some good progress on the ordinals indexer. So we got some more performance improvements in over the last week, and we're doing some testing with that and going through some denial of service sort of contrived block examples just to make sure that we can get the indexer working for every possible scenario, not just the happy path normal ordinals traffic that you see on mainnet. And so as soon as that's ready, we will be also getting that into probably that new separated testnet to start playing around with the new HVM precompiles for it. And let's see, beyond that, I think that's most of the major things. We've also been doing some work on the back end. I think last week or maybe during engineering office hours, we have been making some progress on Dave, which is our internal backup and restore system. And I believe that is now open source. So anyone who wants to use that, it's helpful if you're running a Hemi node and you want to be able to back it up and restore it easily. But it's also maybe with a few minor adaptions applicable if you're running any sort of EVM blockchain node. So they're notoriously hard to run, hard to back up, hard to validate backups. And so this tool makes that easier. Let's see, what else? I think that's all of the major highlights. We've also, for the ZK Proving Marketplace that we demoed on stream last week after I finally got it to work with my local environment setup, that is essentially code complete, still going through some review and testing of that, but that'll be part of the new testnet that we're spinning up as well. So a lot of work streams converging, and looking forward to getting some of that shipped. I'll throw it over to Jeremy for marketing updates.
All right. Well, I'm happy to come in here and give you a little update on our marketing situation. We have a bunch of articles that we're working on coming out with that should elucidate some of the things that we're doing on Hemi, especially with the ZK marketplace. We're also working to get some information about the latest in the Hemi test series. I know that you guys are interested in how we test Hemi and make it secure. Well, we've got an entire series built around to tell you just that. And our good friend Clayton is working on that information. Meanwhile, Marco, the work that he's been doing on ordinals, well, it's not going ignored, and I'm definitely going to be writing about that to elucidate that as well. In the meantime, we're looking at some announcements that we've got in the coffers here that we're looking to very forward to give you more details on soon, but I don't want to ruin the surprise. And one I can ruin the surprise on is a very late Hemi Earn report, which should be coming to you in the very near future. We're just putting the final touches on that one. And with that, I can hand it back to Max and Rick, who will handle the questions from you guys.
All right. Thanks, Jer. Hold on, I'm waiting for some questions to populate. Uno momento. Let's see. All right. Well, let's kick things off. Any updates regarding the VE Hemi rewards distribution? There's several questions regarding that, so we'll just sum it up as this one.
Yep, it will be coming soon. We're distributing some other locked positions, and they're to people who want to have in a separate reward pool, so they don't impact the primary reward pool for the existing VE Hemi holders. So we're getting that sorted out, but we should have, tentatively, we're trying to get it done in the next 2 weeks, but no exact timeline promises. As a reminder, the way the distributions work is they're always cumulative. And so even if it takes us a bit longer to do a reward distribution, the amount that's distributed is larger and covers the entire period since the last distribution. And so you'll still get the same number of tokens either way. But it is coming soon once we unblock that one thing about the reward pool separation. All the tech side of it's done. The contracts support the reward pool separation. We just need to finalize on numbers and make sure the economics work out and don't influence the current VE Hemi position pool.
All right. Are there any updates regarding VBK?
Nothing on VBK at the moment, but as soon as we have something, we will definitely share it. And the distribution is still coming. So.
All right. When will it be possible to participate in governance with VE Hemi?
Relatively soon. So we got Aragon has been deployed to Hemi, and so we're going through and doing some final testing on that, and then we're going to have kind of a staged rollout approach to governance. So I think kind of like we talked about a couple weeks ago. I think Jeremy actually you wrote up a blog post about this, if I'm not mistaken. But we want to do sort of a staged rollout of governance. So starting with some simple things like voting for example, maybe funding some community initiative or like something somebody is developing that they want to build on the Hemi network. And then as we get a sample of how many people are participating, how many people are delegating in the system, then we'll start moving it over to more impactful stuff like the final end goal is governance controls, updates, or rotations to ZK proving verification parameters. And so for all of our ZK stuff we're working on, that'd be governance controlled, some control over economics of the chain where it's relevant. So things like being able to modify, say, POP rewards or the allocation of chain revenue between different sources. So being able to distribute some of that to VE Hemi stakers, some of that to maybe an evergreen DAO or protocol and liquidity, things of that nature. So it's going to be a gradual process, but Aragon's deployed. We're doing some final testing on it, and we'll probably have the first governance vote more of like a show of hands to see who's participating, make sure everyone can use the system probably sometime in the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe a little bit sooner, but that's probably a reasonable time frame for that. And there will be, once we start doing governance, there will be a separation of rewards between just the base VE Hemi incentives and then VE Hemi incentives for people who participate in governance. And so we're still finalizing the delegation split. So if you vote on proposals and you're active directly, you get 100% of the governance rewards relative to everyone else who's also participating. If you delegate, we're still figuring out what percentage split to do. It's probably going to be something in like the 80-20 to 90-10 range. So if you had 100 VE Hemi voting weight and you delegated it to a delegate, and then they are active in governance, they'd get between 10 and 20% of the rewards, and you get the remaining 80 to 90%. So still deciding on that final parameter, but do we where there'll be that there will be that mechanic. If you want the full rewards, you can just participate and vote directly. But if you don't want to be reviewing proposals and understanding them and checking in and voting, potentially as this ramps up several times a month, you can delegate to somebody you trust in the community. They can do the voting on your behalf. We get more governance participation. You still get the 80 to 90% of the governance participation rewards. So stay tuned for final numbers on that, but that's the range we're thinking about.
Right. Let's see. I'm waiting for some questions to come in. Marco, do you have anything on the ordinal front? A man of few words. All right.
You gotta unmute.
All right. Max, you got anything about ZK proof?
I mean, just to fill time until we get more questions, I've been looking at some of the other ZK VMs that are not in production yet, but are coming to production. So taking a deeper look at some of the stuff that they're working on the Jolt side, and been also looking at Zisk, which is originally it was developed under Polygon, but it's been spun out as sort of its own open source, separate like software development company. So doing some review on that and seeing, hopefully this week, going to be doing some benchmarking to see what kind of performance we can get for oxygen, which is a very expensive part of some of the ZK proving, and also the full Hemi end-to-end state transition function proofs. So I know, Jeremy, we're backlogged on blog content from my side, but that is something that I want to do a blog post on too, is a kind of real-world performance benchmark of the various ZK VMs, taking a look at some of the trade-offs, some of the nuances of which ones have different precompiles and how that impacts EVM acceleration. So I've been doing some research on that side. Zisk is pretty interesting. It's still in alpha, or sort of like pre-alpha, so not production ready yet, but give it 6 months and a couple of audits, and it's the kind of thing that's good to get ahead of and have in the queue for when that hits production. Other stuff on the ZK side, we will be open sourcing Oxygen relatively soon. So Oxygen, for anyone somehow not familiar, if you've been on previous Midweek with Max, you've probably heard me say this 100 times, but it's our framework for ZK proving Bitcoin. So what we did is we took Bitcoin and sort of folded its data structure to make it look a lot like the Merkle prediction tree structure that Ethereum uses, which makes it a lot easier to ZK prove over because you have like one state root that represents the entire state system. And we are going to be migrating that into the Hemi network repo. So that's going to be coming over in pieces as we go through code review. But that's, if you're interested in ZK proving Bitcoin, that's going to be coming out soon. And if you want to either read through it, use it for, obviously it's not production ready yet, we still have to go through audits, but if you want to start testing it out for any sort of thing you're building that needs ZK proving of essentially anything about Bitcoin, anything about the UTXO table, chain geometry, fees, meta statistics about blocks and transactions, transaction existence. I already mentioned UTXOs, but spend status of transaction outputs, which is basically everything about Bitcoin. If you need to ZK prove any of it with full ZK proving of the entire Bitcoin execution function, so running all the Bitcoin scripts, doing all the validity checks for transactions, that will be open sourced relatively soon. So looking forward to seeing what people build with that. There's a lot of things you can build on Hemi with it. So once we have full ZK provability for the network, it would be useful for all kinds of, it feeds into HBit VM with a couple extra proving layers on top of it. And then that itself, you can split out and make all kinds of cool, more Bitcoin native DeFi applications. So being able to do like Bitcoin derivative, truly native Bitcoin settled Bitcoin derivatives. So like options and futures contracts directly on Bitcoin, being able to do Bitcoin backed loans, Bitcoin backed stable coins. So all of that's a rich area for greenfield development you can do on Hemi once we have Oxygen open sourced and the remaining HBit VM components built and audited. But even outside of that, you could do cool stuff with HVM the way it works today. If you wanted to, say, do ZK proof of reserves for another protocol, you could do ZK proving of, say, transaction settlement for a native Bitcoin cross-chain DEX. So you could have a DEX that not only runs on Hemi where you already have direct access to all the Bitcoin data through the HVM precompiles, but you could build a multi-chain DEX where anyone can buy and sell native Bitcoin and prove delivery with ZK proof. And you could use that obviously on Hemi itself and benefit from also having the HVM precompiles there. But you could also make a kind of stripped down version of that and run it on other blockchains as well, powered by those ZK proofs. So also totally outside of the DEX world or DeFi world, if you wanted to build a more secure Bitcoin light client, it could be used for that. So you could build a light client on your Bitcoin phone that can peer with the Bitcoin network with nodes that are, augmented with this ZK proving system, and then nobody could ever censor your UTXO table queries. So one of the things with Bitcoin light nodes and the way that they work is if you spin up a light node and you connect to the Bitcoin network and you query Bitcoin nodes and say, hey, what unspent transaction outputs does this address own? It's not really done by address, it's done by the owning script, but conceptually, what UTXOs do these addresses own that I have? And it does things a little more complicated with using a Bloom filter for privacy, but that's irrelevant. The point is, there's no easy, efficient cryptographic way for those nodes to prove to you that they gave you the full response to your query, which means that if you're connected to malicious nodes that your client peers with, and there's no way for your client to tell, they could restrict your client's access to some data about the Bitcoin blockchain. So they could say, you don't own anything, or you own this one UTXO over here when you really own 100. And so with Oxygen, with ZK proving, you could prove that at this Bitcoin block height, this is exactly the UTXO set that this script or this script hash controls. So you could be totally non-DeFi application, but you could use it for more secure Bitcoin light clients. You could use it for new forms of Bitcoin interoperability with other chains. So with Hemi, you don't really need it because you have HVM and you can query the Bitcoin data directly. We need it for our use cases to be able to ZK prove the Hemi network itself to a chain like Ethereum that's not Bitcoin aware. But if you're building something that, say, you want to be a truly cross-chain application that needs to read Bitcoin data, it's not as easy to develop and it's not as efficient, gas-wise and just on-chain complexity. But you could use Oxygen proofs to basically spin up like a limited light version of HVM, if you will. So instead of your contract being able to go like it does in Hemi and say, through its execution path, decide, hey, I want to query this Bitcoin data and this Bitcoin data, and oh, this transaction is relevant to me. Let me walk that backwards. You can't do that, but you could build an application where the caller of the smart contract precedes in that information with ZK proofs. And so you could have sort of I'll call it like diet HVM that you could use on other chains as well. So lots of cool stuff you can do with Oxygen. Looking forward to getting that out there. Is there any other interesting ZK proving stuff?
We actually have some questions.
Oh, cool. Let's go for questions.
Okay. I didn't want to cut you
No,
off.
you're good. I was just filling time.
All right. So let's see. Wisme asks, well, I don't think this is a question, more of a statement. Reminder, don't forget to implement the claiming of the burned VE Hemi rewards for everyone. Also, a more continuity for claiming the rewards would be more appreciated by the community instead of asking for the due date. That wasn't quite a question, but a
Close
reminder,
enough.
if you will.
It's a discussion point. Yeah, so the next claim distribution will unlock the previously unclaimable rewards for past positions. So that's in the queue. What was the other part of it? More regularity. At some point, and this is a future item and it's lower on the engineering list than getting ZK proving out and HBit VM out. But there are some changes we can make to the optimism architecture and the way that fees are collected on chain and stuff like that to make it a more automated process. So that's the long-term goal, but for now it is still a manual process. And usually it happened quicker than this cycle, but this cycle got interrupted by the updates for those other positions that we have to carve out into a separate reward pool and all of that. So we're getting that cleaned up and finished up. And then future awards should be more regular, but it is still going to be a manual process until we make those like actual architectural changes to the fee collection mechanism.
All right. Let's see. Alpha asks. Actually, a couple people asked, but Alpha started it. When will a DEX be released on Hemi?
Well, we have plenty of DEXs you can use today, but I think this may be a question for the DEX that we've been talking about that's sort of Hemi adjacent as kind of a hybrid L2, L3 design. So we're making a lot of progress on that. We're doing a lot of testing, code review. I don't know an exact date on it. It's one of those things where, it's new greenfield development. We're doing cool new things with that other people aren't really doing on DEXs, or at least there's not like a well-grooved path of like the best way to do this on chain. For example, stuff like options. And so it's in development. Hopefully we can show some sort of a demo of it relatively soon, but I don't know an exact launch date. But more broadly speaking, there's existing DEXs on Hemi. Sushi Swap is supported. There's a couple of other smaller DEXs, and I believe there's another DEX that we've been talking to. It's a little bit of a different style of DEX that does pricing and trade clearance based on Oracle prices instead of liquidity pools. So those conversations are in the early days, but we may also be getting a new type of decks from them as well. So don't know the latest details. That's on the BD team side, but there's some potential interesting future developments there. And then obviously the hybrid L2, L3 DEX architecture that we're working on going to be a little bit longer, but in progress and moving along.
Let's see. Raiboku asks, who is building on Hemi and what are they building?
It's a good question. We have a builders channel on Discord if you want to join us. We also do building discussions every 2 weeks now. So we do same time as Midweek with Max, but last week and then next week, and then every second week following that, we do engineering office hours where people can come in and talk about what they're building, ask questions, just have general discussion. From those, some of the things people are building, we got somebody building a really cool indexing data layer / dashboard for Hemi cross-chain metrics, so looking at the Ethereum and the BTC tunnels and sort of tracing things end to end from Bitcoin to Hemi back to Bitcoin, from Ethereum to Hemi back to Ethereum. So that's one of the recent things. We have some people developing games on chain. So we've gotten, and Rick can probably talk a little more to this side of it, but we got hair games and a lot of fun on-chain games that I think are, for the last season, generated about 3,000 on-chain transactions. So getting some adoption use there. What else are people building? We had somebody, obviously Mentora. I don't know if Alpha's, oh yeah, Alpha's in the chat. Alpha built that with, I think Alex helped him out. I'm not sure to what degree Alex was involved, but I know he was involved. But they developed a new NFT marketplace on Hemi, which is live and in mainnet if you want to check it out. Here's I don't know how to post a link. If somebody could post a link to mentora.app. And yeah, there's other people developing other interesting things more as kind of side projects, personal projects. But if you're interested in developing something, definitely reach out. We don't have a official, like, well-grooved grant and bounty program at the moment, but if there's something interesting that you're building, we're definitely happy to discuss some sort of grant for, infrastructure costs or something like that. And also, if it's the type of app that needs on-chain adoptions, it's on-chain DeFi app or something like that. We can also talk about adoption incentives to bootstrap your community using it on Hemi. So yeah, definitely reach out. And I think we'll probably see a lot more interesting stuff coming out once we get Oxygen open sourced, because there's a whole giant design space of cool stuff you can do with that. And once we get HBitVM released, because there's, like I mentioned, all those cool alternative, like truly on Bitcoin, native Bitcoin cleared versions of DeFi apps that you can build with the whole HBitVM stack, which you can't really build with any other technology in the space. So definitely looking forward to that. That's a future item, and we have to get that finished up, buttoned up, audited before people can start really building on top of that whole HBitVM proof system.
Also, I want to add, remember, we're not the arbiters of what people are building on Hemi. Like, we're aware of some of this stuff. We're obviously, here to talk to anyone who wants to build. But if you want to build, go and do it. If you want someone to build something, talk to people in the community. Maybe they want to do it. We're the ones who build Hemi. We're not the ones building everything on it. It doesn't need our permission. It doesn't need our stamp of approval. We want to hear about the cool shit you built, but again, we're not the arbiters of what's going to happen here. All of you are.
Well said. Yeah, there's several community projects being built, and if you are interested, you can apply for the builder role, get in the beta tester channel as well, to try out some of these cool things. And also, there's another channel, projects, where you can check out some stuff being built by Hemi community members, including Mentora. We went through Straight last week, which is something else being developed, and yeah, as Max said, Hair Games being developed by the Hair team. Season 6 started, I believe, on Friday and already has about 3,000 plus transactions. So it's already like shattering the previous season. So love to see that kind of participation. Let's see. Oh, now we are entering the alpha section of the Q&A. Their first question, from an investment perspective, what are Hemi's plans for the end of the year before the next bull market starts?
The big things are shipping all of the ZK features we're working on, and then the formerly Minerify, now fast track piece. So the rollout stage is probably going to be ZK settlement to Ethereum, then fast track, which is the fast Bitcoin onboarding, offboarding system that's based around VE Hemi staking as like economic collateral to run part of the threshold signature scheme in the system. If you're interested in ZK, by the way, we're doing some cool ZK stuff on that fast track side with how we're handling distributed key generation and key resharing. So that's a separate discussion, but probably worthy of a future blog post. And then finally, HBitVM, which is the full end-to-end ZK version of the Hemi Bitcoin tunnel that uses ZK proofs and combines Ethereum proof of stake and Bitcoin proof of work together to basically, I'll say it in high-level terms because otherwise it'll be a 20-minute segment. But if you're curious, we've done tech deep dives, and there's a white paper available too if you want to dig into the tech details. Basically, it uses Bitcoin and Ethereum, their consensus power together to keep each other in check, which is something that you need for ZK proving blockchains that are, or ZK proving blockchains for a validator that has to live offline for a long time, like the ZK validator and HBitVM vault constructions. And so those are the major items that unlocks a huge amount of capital that people want to allocate in Bitcoin and put on chain because it has essentially the same security properties as live ZK Ethereum L2s, but on the Bitcoin side. And so the way that we're designing it is it keeps all of the original decentralization and permissionless properties of BitVM2, but it does so in a way that doesn't have the issues with basically Bitcoin miner ransom attacks against operators in the system. So again, won't deep dive, but basically there's a issue with the original BitVM2 design that made it so Bitcoin miners could attack operators in the system, basically ransom them for a portion of the Bitcoin that they're rightfully owed out of the system by threatening to manipulate the superblock light client emulation system, which was a way, because Bitcoin can't see itself, to get Bitcoin to know what its own canonical state is to validate a ZK proof against. And most of the other projects who are developing or were developing BitVM style technologies solve that with a way that introduced another layer of centralization or some sort of like watchtowers or governance committee or something like that. The design we have solves a superblock light client emulation problem. That's why we're using Bitcoin and Ethereum consensus power together in an interesting way to kind of bounce information off each other, to put it very, very broadly. And that lets us get around the need to have superblock light client emulation without needing to introduce any sort of additional permissioned party or group of people into the system. So it's the most decentralized, most secure version of a BitVM style construction. And that should unlock a lot of people who want to get Bitcoin on chain, but want the same security guarantees as, true like Ethereum ZK L2s that exist today. And one of the other things we're doing, it's not a novel design thing, but it's something that we're prioritizing, is multi ZKVM proving. And so we've historically seen like issues, like under constraint issues in existing ZKVMs that are being used in production. And depending on what exactly is under constraint in the system, that can generally be used by somebody to manipulate a execution trace of a program and prove a incorrect execution in a way that will be validated on chain. And so the best way to defend against that is with a multi-prover architecture, where you have the exact same state transition function being proven by, say, RISC-0, SP1, and OpenVM. That's our current target list. Hopefully Jolt and maybe Zisk in the future, as well as those reach production. But basically it ensures the protocol against any sort of under constraint bug in any one of those systems, because you can require either a 203 or 303 agreement between them. And so that's another thing that we're doing on that side. unrelated to the 8-bit VM proof system architecture as a whole, but it's another layer that we're adding for additional security. So I think those should all be big unlocks for people who want to do Bitcoin DeFi. We're also still working on a lot of different interesting partnerships. Obviously, not going to announce anything until it's actually out in public because things change, and I don't want to steal BD's thunder. But we got some cool projects that are looking to deploy in Hemi that we're in talks with. Some interesting Bitcoin DeFi projects. That one I mentioned that does different kind of DEX based on Oracle pricing for trade clearance, and a couple other interesting things in the pipeline. So yeah, a lot of stuff hopefully coming up before the end of the year.
All right. Alpha has two more questions that were fed to me. When will Mintora be added to Hemi's ecosystem page?
We should get that added. There's no reason it's not.
I'll do it. I'll take care of that.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. That was easy.
That was an easy one.
Wow. Okay. That's great. Hold on. Where? If Hemi releases a phone like Solana, what features will it have? Give us the specs.
It will not make calls, no matter what. It will not, the phone will never make calls. It cannot make calls. It does not make calls. It is not a phone for calling people.
So it's not a phone.
So
It's also private.
It's a phone.
Privacy first.
So kind of like how Solana is not a blockchain for doing blockchain stuff.
Solana is a settlement database. Let's be nice.
Yeah, but aren't databases supposed to work?
I mean, look, databases go down sometimes. Blockchains don't, and that's why Solana.
Kind of a solved problem.
Yeah, solved by don't use Solana.
Well, as far as the Hemi phone.
Wait, are we already done ragging on Solana? We can add some more to it.
Oh, there's more to say. Like maybe they should have read more of the Bitcoin white paper before writing theirs.
Oh man.
They should have read any paper before writing theirs.
Yeah. No, that's not true. They read like the first 3 lines of the abstract. And we're like, oh, we could do that.
You need a supercomputer to run a node, but if we made a blockchain phone, I don't know. I mean, I think security features would be interesting. There's I'm not a hardware designer.
All right, Mac, let me help out. Think ZK.
It'd be cool to have a ZK coprocessor. There's a lot of, if you had like and this is, people are working on ZK proving ASICs, not for phones, for probably obvious reasons because nobody cares. But that would be cool. Being able to, in the future, I think as the ecosystem develops and we get more ZK-enabled apps, there's going to be more demand for client-side proving of stuff. So there's a lot of cool like DeFi designs you could build where users, basically ZK is, among other things, it's a really good way to offload really complex computations off-chain. And so usually the way that's done today is you have something that happens on-chain, and then you have someone running a giant supercomputer in a data center, or those in a ZK proving marketplace or something, where they will then take the data that's on-chain and then ZK prove it so it could be used for, like, say, cross-chain interoperability. But one of the things that's, and there are protocols doing this, but one of the things that's underexplored is having client-side ZK proof generation for what you're actually doing as a user for your single interaction with the protocol. And so, for example, if you had, this is a contrived example because there's better ways to do this, but as a simple example, if you had like a central limit order book, one of the somewhat challenging problems with a central limit order book for on-chain is that you need a matching engine, and that matching engine can be pretty expensive. And again, there's ways to optimize it with how you structure the data for the bid and ask order book so that you can, everything is sorted on insertion and whatnot. But you do have scaling problems where potentially, depending on the amount of usage on the DEX or on a particular market on the DEX, you could exceed the gas budget of what you can do in a single, Ethereum or Hemi or Base or whatever transaction. And so you have the whole central limit order book on chain, so it's authenticated. If you structure it in the right way, you could easily ZK prove as a user the settlement of your trade against the existing order book without having to run the order book matching system on chain. So I think things like that, as ZK VMs mature more, as they get faster, as people start caring more about new types of DeFi, because a lot of DeFi is today very optimized so that it can run purely on chain for obvious reasons. But there's a whole underexplored space of what you can do if you can offload a very expensive computation that would maybe take 1 billion gas to run on chain, but you can offload that to an end user, and that lets you build some more robust DeFi system, for example. And so for today, basically the only ZK provers that you can have a client realistically use are like ones that run in a web browser, and those are limited both in features and speed. But I think it would be cool to see, especially for a phone design, if you have like a ZK accelerator, you could interact with these protocols, you could ZK prove any reasonable amount of computations you need way more efficiently than your RISC-V processor or your very much RAM constrained GPU on the system trying to construct those ZK proofs. So I think that'd be cool. Would anyone really care? Probably not. But I think that'd be cool. There could also be some interesting security features. I'm not a hardware security guy. Most, if not all, modern phones already have some version of like a secure enclave and ways to, store sensitive data in an encrypted fashion on the phone. But it would be cool to see maybe something that's a little more like Web3 centric, in the sense that you can have, and this is another space in the blockchain ecosystem I think is underexplored, is identity as sort of a native hybrid on-chain, off-chain primitive. And so and there's tons of proposals for how to build like digital identity systems. I'm not talking about the spies on you all the time. I'm talking about you choose what information to reveal, what information not to reveal to each service, and it's all authenticated under one single identity, so you have coherence across all types of different services. And there's a cool opportunity to build something like that on chain, kind of like a really souped up version of, say, W3's DID standards or something like that, where you have finer granularity control. You can introduce ZK proofs for a lot of personal information. There's some cool, still not in production, but some cool stuff for even ZK proving biometrics totally locally, so it preserves all of your privacy, but it can ZK prove something about your face matches this identifier without linking that to any real human identity. So there's, I think, a lot of cool things like that, that if that identity system were to be built on chain, there's probably some cool stuff you could do with the phone experience, whether that be single sign-on based on that on-chain identity, whether it be key management, and then where I was getting with the security side is like a social key recovery system. So it wouldn't recover the actual key, but it would recover rights to assets that are stored in contracts on chain that understand how this identity system works. So I think there's probably a lot of cool stuff like that, but I don't think there's a Hemi phone coming anytime soon, but I guess it's fun to dream about.
This next question comes from Hemi Bros DAO, asking, if you could redesign the Hemi blockchain again from scratch, what changes would you make, if any?
I don't think I'd make any changes. I think I'd change the priority of how I probably would have tried to get ZK proving earlier on in the system. Like now we're, adding it in as, I don't want to say a bolt-on, because it's still deeply native in the architecture and like how we're integrating Oxygen with the Oxygen state transition proofs and being able to fold those into the overall L2 STF proofs, and then the DA derivation and being able to link those all together. So it's still very native. I don't think there's any, like, when we get to the end state of ZK provability, there won't be any technical difference between the way that we're building it now and the way that we would have done it if we were building it in from like day one. But definitely, probably the only change would be doing all of the ZK development stuff earlier on in the development cycle. But also back then, zkVMs were not nearly as mature. And, in like the last year, we've seen multiple high-profile exploits against zkVM proving systems, which again is why we're going with the multi-prover route. But, at the time when we started Hemi, those systems were very slow and very expensive. And B, they were, a lot less mature from a security perspective than they are today. So would have been cool to do the zk stuff earlier, but there's also some practicalities of, if we developed a lot of that stuff a while ago, we probably would have had to change a lot of it as the zkVM ecosystem evolved anyway.
I've got an answer.
Go for it.
So I would have wanted to spend some time in the very beginning having a clearer plan for a post-optimism future, or post-OP stack, not post-optimism.
Yeah, I'm right there. I was going to bring up the exact same thing. There's less optimism and more pessimism.
Hot. All right, let me see here. Now, this is a question that we might be able to just kind of elucidate on. God, I've said that like 4 times today. I can't say that anymore. We might be able to
pontificate.
Yeah, pontificate is another good one. I like that. Asking from Omni, is there going to be any era of new Hemi, like launching guild Hemi games? We're in the midst of working with Zeely to launch a vibrant ecosystem for the community. And that will involve not only the existing iteration of the Hemi games, which you can check out in our Discord server. We've got a very amazing season, I think 6 now going of Hemi games, which have a lot of on-chain activities that you can partake in and compete for prizes. We'd love to see you there. This is something that we're working on right now. And when Rick's back, he's taking care of a small issue right now. He'll be able to provide a little bit more information to you guys on this as it kind of unwinds.
I have returned. So basically, we have pivoted away from Guild. We are setting something up with Zeely in the near future. I don't have a timeline for that, but it is actively being worked on behind the scenes by myself, Daniel, Joshua, JCV. It's coming. I just don't have a timeline on it because we spent a lot of time trying to get Guild up and running, and well, here we are. So so that's the best I got on that right now. Let's see. All right, we asked that one. Mentora says hello world.
I think there's a question from Nabil for Joshua and JCB.
Oh, another alpha question. Yes. Does your Bamboo Labs A1 pop too much? Is that a problem? It's running great. And can you suggest some filaments? Oh, God damn it. We're back to 3D printing. All right. Take it away. I just asked the questions that are given to me. So
I mean,
that was
I don't use anything by Bamboo Labs. Their anti-open source and cloud first stance were hard nosed for me. I have a Prusa MK4S, which I love and works great. Filament, I really like Inland and Elegoo, however the fuck you pronounce that. And I do not touch Hatchbox because every goddamn spool I got from them was hopelessly tangled, and their support ignored me. So fuck them.
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to by pop. Is it like little bubbles in the filament, or is it making popping noises? Or if it's leaving like little bubbles in the print, sometimes it's due to moisture in the filament and it just needs drying. If it's making pop sounds, it could also be moisture. I'm not.
Yeah, definitely
sure.
watch out. Definitely pay attention to.
It's moisture, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Phil, PLA really likes water. So if it's in a moist environment, it's going to do it. Like you can buy like almost like Ziploc bags that you can like with a little USB powered thing to suck the air out of them to save them, to keep them nice and dry. Or all those little packets of the do not eat packets. from things. You
Yeah,
can get those and keep them with it.
I bought a filament dryer which worked really well and a bunch of vacuum seal bags, and
Yeah, vacuum seal bags.
those were
Jesus, why couldn't I think of that?
those work great, especially with some silicon desiccant, or it gets hot here, so when silicon desiccant is raised, the weather is hotter than like 40 degrees, the desiccant actually starts to release all of the moisture again. So I did find for some things using molecular sieve worked better, and didn't release the moisture as much. You said before printing, so I'm thinking, are you referring to the little extrusions that it makes and discards before printing? If so, that's just it clearing all of the nozzle, and it will always do that. All Bamboo Lab printers do.
So what I'm hearing is POP is a feature on blockchains and a bug in 3D printing.
Bamboo Lab calls them filament poops because they're just these little coils of filament that it extrudes every single time before it starts printing. So yes, those are normal. I guess for the A1, I think you can print baskets for them that will catch all of them. And if you ever use an AMS to do multicolor printing, it will make those every single time you switch color as well, which can get annoying, especially with lots of colors or switching between colors. Yes, search MakerWorld for, you can find like baskets and things that clip onto the A1.
All right. Anything else in the hopper? There are a couple questions, but I mean, as we've said before, we're not here to discuss matters that pertain to market conditions or anything like that, nor can we give financial advice. So if there are some questions pertaining that, that's why we just aren't answering them, because it's just not something we do here, nor have ever historically. Josh, is there anything else in the hopper? I see something VBK, but Max covered that at the top of the hour. I believe it is. It is still coming, but there are no major updates. Is that correct?
Yep, yeah. As soon as we have updates, we'll definitely share them, but no updates to share at the moment.
All right. Let's see. Oh, hell. When OG?
We are working on it. That's some minor changes to what we're doing on the OG side, which I think all for the better. People will be excited about them. Can't quite announce them yet, but one of them is, well, I can't share details yet, but as soon as I can share them, I'll share more details.
No spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. We are still finishing up the tech side of that. It's been, it keeps getting bumped by other things on the engineering's plate, but it is still coming and hopefully should be worth the wait. I don't know, Josh, if there was anything else you wanted to add on the OG side.
It's mostly just the UI for Mochi, our Discord wallet linking system, and then the claiming side of it that needs to be completed. And now that we are adding some additional things, we're planning on moving that up and prioritizing it more. So I'm working on it. Just yesterday, I went through all of the code to make sure we know exactly what needs to be done, and then we're going to be working on it again very soon. Again, can't really spoil anything, but we are working on that, and there will be more updates very soon.
Right. So yeah, very good news on the OG front. It is coming. It's going to be probably a little cooler and hopefully make people super happy. Now Alpha is using 2 accounts to ask questions, and they're the same question. So what the hell? If Hemi were a fruit, what kind of fruit would it be? God damn it.
I'm going to go with passion fruit because it's unique and interesting, but you can also like find it at your grocery store.
Chocolate pudding soup fruit, because it's a fruit that I looked up on Google that is the rare fruit that looked good.
Chocolate is that pudding? A thing? Chocolate pudding fruit?
Apparently.
I went down a rabbit hole years ago. And I don't remember anything from it, but there's this YouTuber who he goes around the world and like his entire life is just finding the weirdest, most exotic fruits to try. And yeah, he would have a good answer to this question. But
So
I like passion fruits too, by the way.
I do like the weird, strange fruit. I got a this little plant that it's a cucamelon. It's like they're like little mini cucumbers, but with a little more citrusy, but they look like tiny watermelons.
Huh. That sounds fun.
And
Is nobody
they're-
going to bring up durians?
Dude, I knew. Yeah. Ah,
damn it, Marco.
You're
And
welcome.
I mean, and look, if it, I mean, I would think the obvious one is, Hemi is what our logo. It's round and orange. That gives you a lot of real easy choices for fruit.
Banana, lime, kiwi.
mango. It's mango.
To Marco's
Durian.
point, for durian, like you shouldn't eat Hemi on a bus and you shouldn't eat durian on a bus. So there is a little bit of crossover, I guess.
Don't eat Hemi, you guys.
Although in an orange defense, it is at least hemispherical. See what I did there?
Ah,
Yeah, orange is a good one.
All right. Well,
orange, you're
that
gonna
went
say
off the
banana?
rails. Oh, Jesus
I take
Christ.
it that was
I
the end of
not.
the questions.
I think I think that was the end of the question. So with that, we're gonna check out a little early today. Oddly, at 11 a.m. EST or EDT. I always forget that. Luckily, we're getting rid of daylight savings here in the United States, which I'm actually very excited about.
Am I the only one who thought they did that like 5 years ago and that just never got
No.
implemented? I could have sworn I saw an article like
They,
5
they,
years ago.
they've
about
said
Congress
several
gets-
times. This is not the
I think
first
they
time that
tried
they
it,
said
yeah.
we're really doing it this time.
Okay,
So
I'm not
what
going
I'm
crazy.
I have the same memory, by the way, Max, that it was abolished and then it came back. And by the way, for anybody who's on, fuck all of these daylight saving shit. Pick one. Get the fuck out.
I mean, Trump came around. He was like, "I don't want daylight saving any money, so we're getting rid of the daylight savings.
Just get rid of it. I don't give a shit.
Daylight's gonna be
Either
poor
one
like
of
the
them.
rest of you."
I hope he sues daylight savings. That would be incredible.
I would vote for a serial killer if they got rid of it.
I'm gonna open up a bank called Daylight Savings and Loan.
Jesus Christ.
Well, on that
Okay.
note,
Yeah, on that note, Jesus. Okay, so Jeremy did a Trump impression. He's starting a bank. Okay, yeah. So that's our quick recap. Anyway, please join us next week for another Midweek with Max. Hair Game Season 6 is very much ongoing in the Hemi Discord, so please check that out. Speak with Alex, Alpha, any of the community moderators for information regarding that. You can also go to the Hair Discord server where they run all sorts of stuff. There is a Rumble session following this Midweek with Max in the Hair server. You can also join us next week for our protocol engineering office hours, which is Wednesday at 11 a.m. EST. And holy shit, I think that might be my fastest outro ever. So let me quit while I'm ahead and kick it over to the team, and we'll say some goodbyes.
all right, awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us for another Midweek with Max. A lot of stuff in the queue that should be coming out for community testing soon, next couple of weeks here. So stay tuned for that. And we will see you either next week on Midweek with Max or if you're working on something cool, we'd love to also see you in the engineering office hours next Wednesday, same time as midweek, just Wednesday instead of Tuesday. So with that, I will turn over if anyone else has any outros, and we will see everyone next week.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.